Okay, so let's get started. If you remember, in the previous lecture, we introduced ourselves to a very exciting branch of biology, that is endocrinology. Okay, we have spoken about it repeatedly. Nixon also covered a few points. I am going to continue with it, and again amongst the family of different hormones and the endocrine glands, I will talk about some of the most important ones. It is called as the pituitary gland. What do you call it as? Pituitary. Pituitary gland is also known as hypophysis. Hypo is below. Okay, physis is an attachment. It's an attachment below the brain. Therefore, the name is come hypophysis. But I'll talk about it. So let's talk about, and so what I'm going to do now is talk about. But remember one thing: you can't really talk about pituitary gland without talking about the hypothalamus. Okay, and what is hypothalamus? It's the lowermost part of the brain. Okay, of the thalamus is. I can't teach you anatomy there. Someday I wish I can. So hypothalamus is almost very small part, about 1% of the brain volume is about hypothalamus. But it's very important for some of the very important vegetative functions, like remember we already talked about what osmoreceptors are there. Okay, so it's a very important area. It works. It controls to some extent. It controls autonomous nervous system, and very importantly, it is a very good, excellent. It's a center for neuroendocrine control. That's the same thing, neuroendocrine control. So let's see what it is. But again, to appreciate that, I need to take you back into the development of the human brain. Very big topic, but we'll finish it in 2 minutes. You have this here somewhere. This section, sagittal section. Hello, are you okay? Through a human fetus, which is about 2-3 months old, that one there. And the thick blue line that you see, is the brain under development. Okay, so far? Brain is developing, not fully developed, no. Then if you see here, there is an opening here, and that's the mouth of the baby. It's not a baby, it's still a fetus, very early development. That's the mouth. Okay, so far? Now, if I were to take a story little ahead, if this is the mouth, then in the roof of the mouth, a pocket develops, which is indicated in this diagram by a thick red line. Can you do that? Can you get that? Follow this. This is very interesting. Without this, you won't really enjoy the endocrinology of pituitary gland. So that red pouch, that red pocketing is actually part of the alimentary canal. Okay, is a part of what? Alimentary canal. And as the development proceeds, then some part of the brain indicated here by the blue line, some of the neurons send their axons and they go on the posterior side of the red outpocketing. So now you are having a composite structure in which the red part is coming from the alimentary canal and the blue part is coming from the brain. Do you appreciate that? It's a composite gland. The red part is coming from where? And the blue part is coming from where? Brain. It's a composite gland. Okay. Eventually, as the fetus develops, okay, you have a pituitary gland in which the anterior part, denoted here with the same color code that is red, we will call as the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland or anterior pituitary gland, and the blue one is called as the posterior pituitary gland. So what am I showing you just now? I am looking at, I am cutting the entire, even your brain. If I cut in this way, your pituitary will be split into 2 parts, right and left. If you look at each, there will be anterior pituitary and a posterior pituitary, and you know very well that the anterior pituitary is derived from which part? Alimentary canal. What do you call it as? And the posterior part is derived from where? Nervous part, nervous part, or the brain. Is that very clear? Okay. Now, I am going to talk about different neuronal groups in the hypothalamus. Neurons, hypothalamus. Okay. And I think we have already, did I introduce the word nucleus to you? So what is a nucleus? It's a bunch of neurons. And hypothalamus is made up of different groups of neurons or different bunches of neurons. Okay, so far? And if you recall, we already know that there are a couple of different groups of neurons, and those neurons have axons, and those axons go all the way to the posterior pituitary gland, and there they secrete a very familiar hormone. What is that? What is the name of that hormone? Very good. What is the name of the hormone? Vasopressin. What is the name of the hormone? So I will draw your attention to, let us see, this is the, I am sure this is the pituitary gland, that is the hypothalamus, this is the hypothalamus, this is the pituitary gland, and in the hypothalamus we have neurons. Those neurons give rise to axons, go down, they go into the posterior pituitary gland. In the posterior pituitary gland, those axons directly terminate on capillary. Okay, and what kind of hormones do they release into the capillary in the blood in the capillaries? You know, vasopressin, and I'll give you another name, oxytocin. What is it? So oxytocin and vasopressin are two hormones which are released, which are synthesized in the brain, transported all the way along with the axons, okay, and discharged into the blood capillary at the level of posterior pituitary gland. Okay, so far? Yeah.
Anatomically, does this happen near medial eminence?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. This is the median eminence. This is the median eminence. I'll come to that in the next slide. That is two groups actually in the hypothalamus. Now there are other groups, actually several groups are there. Some of the other groups, they are also there in the hypothalamus. Okay, they also give rise to axons. Those axons are relatively short, and they end in what you call as at the interface. At the interface of the pituitary and the hypothalamus, and that interface is called as median eminence. What do you call it as? Say that loudly. Median eminence. Now, if you recall our previous lecture, in which somebody had asked me as to what is the blood-brain barrier and how do some of the peptides in the periphery enter into the brain. You remember somebody asked? Who asked? Good. You remember that question? Okay. The answer to that question is, in the median eminence, there are capillaries. Okay. And the median eminence is a part of brain. Okay. But those capillaries which pass through the median eminence, okay, are devoid of blood-brain barrier. Are what? Devoid of blood-brain barrier. Okay. Now, let us see. Why did nature provide them? Why did? That's a very interesting question. Let us try to find out if we can get the answer. Okay. So, now I am talking about other groups of neurons, which are means what? Not oxytocin, not vasopressin secreting, not. Those neurons, they go and terminate right in the median eminence on the capillaries. So, those neurons are secreting what? Their own secretion, which is not oxytocin, vasopressin, and that secretion, so where is it going? In the capillaries in the median eminence, okay, and there is no blood-brain barrier. So, even those hormones which are relatively large peptide hormones, they can still enter into the blood. Now comes a very interesting part. The capillaries in the median eminence, which have taken the secretion from some of the neurons in the hypothalamus, are you with me? Okay, they go down, those capillaries, they go down into the anterior pituitary gland, and again capillarize. So, a capillary network comes together and again capillarizes. What do we call it as? Portal. Very good. Who said that? That's a correct answer. What is the answer? It's written there. Portal system. So in our studies so far, this word is coming for the second time. When did we hear the word for the first time? Hepatic portal. Okay. So, hepatic portal means what? The blood goes through a tissue, comes together in a blood vessel. Normally, we expect that it will go back to the heart. But instead of going back to the heart, it goes to another organ, again capillarizes. Portal. What is the word? Portal. And here we are encountering. So, if I ask you, just in the human system, there are two portal systems. One is hepatic portal system, and this is called as Get the correct name. Hypothalamo, hypophyseal portal system. Hypothalamo is hypothalamo. Hypophyseal I already told you. What is hypophysis? Pituitary. But the name has evolved like this. What is the evolved name? So, what you are seeing here is a hypothalamus. Everybody should say hypothalamo, hypophyseal portal system. So, I will say that a large number of peptidergic hormones, which are again synthesized by the neurons of the hypothalamus, are discharged at the level of capillaries in the median eminence, and those hormones travel from the median eminence to the anterior pituitary gland by way of the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system, and then those hormones control the secretions of the anterior pituitary gland. So, who controls the anterior pituitary gland? Hypothalamus controls. Who controls? Hypothalamus controls. Well, go back, step back. Posterior pituitary gland. Posterior pituitary gland is simple. The hypothalamus sends axons. There is no control. Of course, the control is in the hypothalamus. It goes directly into the blood. Oxytocin, vasopressin. Done. Anterior pituitary gland. And there are several such factors which are coming from the hypothalamus, and we call them as releasing factors. Releasing, now let us understand what I mean by the releasing factor. Before that, now I'll take you a step ahead and I'll introduce you to something, reintroduce you to something that you already know. What am I going to talk about? I am going to talk about so I am absolutely sure in this I am pointing out at anterior pituitary or posterior pituitary. And what is this? And the author has given us symbolically the different hormones which are secreted by the anterior pituitary gland. And we are very familiar with them, and some of them, can you read here? TSH. It is not very clear, but it is TSH. What do you call it as? TSH. What does thyroid? Very good, very good. What do you call it as? Thyroid stimulating hormone. Excellent. Thyroid stimulating hormone. As the name indicates, these cells here will secrete TSH that will go to the thyroid, stimulate the thyroid, and in response the thyroid will secrete its hormones which are T3, T4. I will talk about it. Second is called as ACTH. Say everybody to repeat after me: adreno corticotropic hormone. Again, keeping your mouth shut is not an option. So tell me the whole name. Abbreviated as ACTH. And this hormone has a direct stimulatory action on the adrenal cortex, which is sitting above the kidney. The third hormone here is the growth hormone. What is it? Growth hormone. There are several hormones. We are going to focus on 6 hormones. Make life simple. How many hormones? What is the source? Anterior pituitary gland. And they are all being controlled by what? Hypothalamus. How? By way of certain stimulatory factors. Actually, there are inhibitory factors also, but I will not talk about it now. We are good so far? The third hormone I am going to talk about is the growth hormone. Okay. So, growth hormone again comes from the growth hormone secreting cells in the pituitary gland. It goes from the pituitary, it goes everywhere along with the blood and has a profound effect on almost everywhere. It is a strongly anabolic hormone. It will build up protein synthesis in the skeletal muscle cells, into the bones, everywhere. Other than nervous system, it has stimulatory effect everywhere. Growth hormone. So, how many hormones have I told you so far? The other 2 hormones are linked together and we will call them as LH and FSH. What do we call them as? What does LH stand for? What does FSH stand for? And these 2 hormones play a major role in the regulation of what? Gonads. Regulation of what? Gonads, male, female, whatever it is, it is a control of. So, how many hormones have we covered so far? Just mentioned, we will talk in details. How many hormones we have covered so far? 5. The 6th hormone I am going to talk about is called as prolactin. What do you call it as? Prolactin. Okay, it has a lot of regulatory activities. One of the most important is to bring about the generation of milk in the mammary gland after the birth of the baby. Okay, all right. So now this picture you have to remember. Okay, I mean throughout. You see, this is actually the basis of This is actually a very elaborate science, which is a sub branch of endocrinology. We call it as science of neuroendocrinology. Science of what science it is? Neuroendocrinology, where we learn as to how the hypothalamus, by way of different secretory substances, regulates the anterior pituitary gland and brings about the release of hormones from the posterior pituitary gland. Done so far? Okay. Now, most of the substances which come from the hypothalamus, mostly peptides. Mostly what? Peptides. Only one dopamine is there. You see, biology is funny. You make a rule, cite an exception. So, most of them are what? Peptides, but dopamine is also there. Okay, we will talk about it a little later. Okay. So, if we are okay so far, I will move on. Okay, so this is on the left column we have the different cell types, in the second the hormones they release, the chemistry of each, and the physiological significance of each has been abbreviated. You can read about it. I will talk in the rest of the class. I am going to focus on the growth hormone. Now, in this class I will not talk about TSH and ACTH and LH and FSH, because I will talk about it when I talk about the adrenal. So, when I talk about thyroid, I will talk about TSH. Talk about adrenal cortex, I will talk about ACTH, and when I talk about gonads, I will talk about LH and FSH. Okay, so far. So today we are going to focus on one of the most important hormones from the pituitary gland. And important, every hormone is important. There is no point in emphasizing it 100 times. But growth hormone, because almost 1/3 of the pituitary is containing growth hormone secreting cells. What did I say? So why do I call that? Can you see those green round circles there? Yeah, it's a section through the pituitary of rat. Okay, and what am I showing you? A huge number of what cells? Growth hormone secreting cells. How did I label them? We can get antibody against growth hormone. Okay, it's a large protein. It's about. Can you tell me growth hormone is made up of how many amino acids there? 191 amino acids. The peptide looks something like this. Each circle here is an amino acid. Are you getting the argument? It's a huge big molecule. Okay, and then it is secreted from the pituitary. It will get into the blood. Okay, and from the blood it will go everywhere and have its profound effect. Just to show you the what a profound effect growth hormone has on growth, as the name indicates. Okay, a very simple experiment has been done. So we have rat. We take rat from same litter. Are you with me? A female rat has given birth to 6 of its pups. Okay, I am going to divide 6 into 2 groups, 3 into 3. Whereas one group I am going to treat with growth hormone. Okay, how do I know the dose of growth hormone which I should inject? As a biology student, try to answer my question. How can I determine? Today, if I ask you, do this experiment, how will you determine the dose of growth hormone? Literature, come on, you are a scientist now. How will you go? Go to the literature, okay? Hundreds before you have used growth hormone, okay? So just look there, okay? Go to the references. Don't do any experiment without seeing the references, okay? Don't do that. Never do that.
The first one who are doing this experiment
Then you have the freedom to do whatever you choose. Okay, of course, he is absolutely correct. Somebody has to be first. Okay, then I'll tell you there is answer for that also. If this is a peptide hormone, I'll have to find out what are the other peptide hormones. Try to get a clue from the parallel work. Get the answer? Oh yeah, there is always an answer. Okay, so what have I done? I have divided the pups. I had how many in beginning? 6, 3 into 3. Now this group has been injected with a dose of growth hormone every day for okay, let's begin with the control. So a control group has been injected with what, saline? Let's give saline. Okay, every day. Okay, every day some saline, and every day you weigh the animal and keep on doing the experiment, and our experiment continues for how many days? 600 days, 600 days, and what do you find that there is increase in the weight, and more or less after 300 days the weight of the animal is constant, and the weight of the animal is constant at about how much you can read there, 250 grams or something. Now, the group of other 3 rats I am going to inject with what? Growth hormone, and the dose I have got from the literature, okay, right. And then what do I find at the end of 600 days? How much? Double, okay, just double, just see the, and now this is about 20 years old, but this is quite an excitement. This is a, when the science of transgenic animals was just coming about 25 years back, okay. So in the mouse they had introduced the growth hormone gene. So whereas this is the control, this was what? The the knock-in, where the growth hormone was introduced into the animal. So now we are looking at the, so growth hormone binding protein is composed of, okay, then let's talk about the structure of the growth hormone. Half-life of growth hormone in blood is about how much? It's 20 minutes. Let's move on. Okay, so growth hormone is released from the pituitary gland and it acts on its target. The moment I say target, what do I mean by that? All the skeletal muscles, they have growth hormone, okay. All the cells which okay, bone, what did I say? Bone. There are cells, okay. The bone is traversed by very fine canals called as Haversinian canals. I will not talk about it. And there are cells which help to deposit the calcium salts into the base, so that the bone can grow. Okay, so far those cells are called as osteoblasts. What do you call them as? Osteoblasts. Osteoblasts have receptors for growth hormone. Okay, so far. And then liver, okay, and then adipose tissue, okay, and then name it. You see, almost every tissue will have receptors for growth hormone, and this is the, so this is the, there are 2 proteins, okay, identical proteins, and when the growth hormone combines, okay, they dimerize and they take a signal inside, and then this JAK2 is phosphorylated, and then downstream it takes it, and then the signal goes into the nucleus, and n number of enzymes are upregulated, and several of those enzymes are anabolic hormones. Are what? So those enzymes, okay, which will indulge into building up of larger proteins, okay, or so they are all, I don't know how many, but a large number of enzymes are upregulated under the influence of. So this gives us a catalog of the different so it has action on protein anabolism, it has action on building of a large number of it has effect on the carbohydrate metabolism, it has effect on the fat metabolism, and this is a, so let's see what is happening here. I am going to talk about it because it gives a summary and gives a, good. I am reminded of something very interesting when I see this slide. Tell me 2 sources where I can hope to have somatostatin. Tell me 2 sources. Pancreas and stomach, okay. The third source is hypothalamus. So please tell me, fill in the blank, tell me 3 sources where I can find somatostatin. Pancreas, stomach and hypothalamus, okay. Are you with me? And very interestingly, where is this somatostatin coming from? It is coming from hypothalamus. What hypothalamus? Neurons. There are one group in the hypothalamus, many synthesizes somatostatin, okay. About 28 or so amino acid is the size of the somatostatin molecule, okay. Now somato word refers to body, refers to what? Refers to body, okay. Now, okay, listen to this. There are 2 groups of neurons, many, I am focusing on 2 groups of neurons, where in the hypothalamus. One group of neuron releases, a common sense question is coming, pay attention. One group of neurons releases a hormone called as, I will call it as somatotrophin, and another cell group of neurons releases another peptide hormone which is called a somatostatin. Now, tell me what would each hormone do to the growth hormone when it goes there to the anterior pituitary gland? Antagonistic. So, somatotropin means what? Stimulate. So, whenever somatotropin comes, whenever somatotropin comes, okay, it will go to the pituitary gland, stimulate the growth hormone, and whenever somatostatin comes, it will go down. It will go down. Now, that D cell in the pancreas or somatostatin cell in the stomach, that name is meaningless. What has somatostatin got to do with it? But now you know why somatostatin is called as somatostatin. Hello, you got the logic behind it. So, logic comes from this is we discovered this peptide, we called it somatostatin. I find it in the islets of pancreas, same peptide, somatostatin. There it does not make any sense. Why it is just controlling some carbohydrate metabolism, okay? Or somatostatin, it is what is it doing? It is inhibiting H cells. Hello, it is inhibiting parietal cells. Nothing to do somato, but the name has come, and the name comes from here. Okay, so if you remember the name, okay, logically you will know what it does. Okay, all right. So hypothalamus. Read the first block. GHRH secretion. Okay. Can somebody please decipher for me the abbreviation GHRH? Growth hormone releasing hormone. What is it called as? Very good. Growth hormone releasing hormone, which is same as somatotropin. Good. And this is somatostatin, and the arrow goes down. They come from the pituitary. Depending on, it is for the brain to decide as to when I am going to, when I need to stimulate the growth hormones. Accordingly, the hypothalamus secrete, it will go to the anterior pituitary gland. Yeah. Any question? Ask me.
Isn't GH called somatotropin?
Which one?
Growth hormone is called somatotropin, right? And not the releasing hormone.
Am I making a mistake there? Yeah, growth hormone. I made a mistake. You are right. Thanks for correcting. Growth hormone itself is somatotropin. Yeah. And you are correct. And the agent that comes from the hypothalamus is the first one. What is written there? GHRH. This is a 14 amino acid containing peptide. So, we will not, I am sorry, that we will not call it as somatotropin, we will call it as GHRH. It acts on the, you are right, it acts where? Growth hormone. Okay. So, growth hormone will have receptors for both somatostatin and GHRH. Okay. And both of them are G protein coupled systems. Okay. So, then anterior pituitary growth hormone. Okay. Now, let us see what growth hormone does. It acts on the liver. Now, this is interesting. Follow the story. It is a beautiful story. One of the main targets for growth hormone coming from the pituitary gland or somatotropin is the liver. Okay. How it acts, that we have seen, the receptor we have already seen, acts on the liver. Okay. In turn, of course, it promotes a lot of anabolic hormones in the liver also. But one thing that interestingly it does is, it instructs the liver to secrete yet another hormone, and it is called as IGF. What do you call it as? It is called as, insulin-like growth factor, or IGF-14 and IGF-16, there are two of them. It is called as insulin-like growth factor. Now, in some way this molecule is similar to insulin, but it has no action with reference to regulation of blood glucose. Hello. So, do not be misled by the use of the word insulin. What am I talking about? I am talking about a peptide. That peptide is being secreted by what? Liver. Under the influence of what? Growth hormone. What is the name of that factor? Insulin-like growth factor. Insulin-like growth factor. But it has nothing to do with, it has, no, I will tell you, the structurally, whereas insulin is made up of 51 amino acids, yes, 51 amino acids, insulin-like growth factor has about 70 amino acids, and there is a lot of similarity in the sequence of amino acids. But whereas insulin has a trademark, what is it? Reduced blood glucose level. Insulin-like growth factor does not have that function. Okay? It has a function which is very much like growth hormone. Means what? It promotes growth. It promotes growth of bone, it promotes growth of. So, a lot of action of the growth hormone is either directly on the target organ or it is via the insulin-like growth factor. Are you getting the story now? Are you getting it? On many targets, the growth hormone will act directly, on other organs it will act to the liver, from the liver insulin-like growth factor and then act on the liver, but in either case it is to promote the growth. Is the message fully taken? Okay. So, let us see insulin growth factor, many tissues, cell division, other growth promoting events, then the growth hormone, protein synthesis, insulin-like growth factor, adipose tissue, the glucose uptake goes down, lipolysis goes up, muscle cell glucose uptake and etc. etc. We will see. So,
Sir,
yes.
is the receptor for insulin-like growth factor also the GH receptor, or it has a separate receptor?
It is a separate receptor. Oh no, it has a separate receptor. That is correct. It has a separate receptor. Means the receptor for growth hormone, no, separate. Okay, yeah.
So
Yes, please.
in this slide, it was said there's a decrease in glucose uptake
Yes.
provides energy. A decrease in glucose uptake in the muscles.
I mean, you are saying that therefore it is not anabolic. Is that your argument?
Sorry, I got it.
Huh? You are clear about it. Good.